I'm chatting with Graeme Haycroft, who is someone involved in making life better for employees by reducing the stranglehold grip that unions have in representing them. So your argument is that representation gets better when unions are competing with each other and not monopolising any representation.
Oh, the same with anything else. I mean, unions are just a business. They've managed to con the people of Australia for nearly 100 years that they're somehow special and therefore somehow they need a monopoly. And this monopoly of unions would be totally different from any other monopoly. Well, that's rubbish.
Yeah, of course.
It's exactly the same as any other monopoly.
So what kind of pushback did you get from the AWU when you started getting better outcomes and better pay for shed hands in the shearing industry?
Well, the AWU, Bill Ludwig in particular, wasn't at all pleased. And I remember a TV thing where he went on and said, "Who is this person? Is he a snake oil salesman?" So I guess that was me. They eventually lost. They lost their monopoly control. They lost their hegemony, I suppose. We had a couple of court cases which we won. And it was very interesting. Only one case did we actually fight the battle on the actual issue. Ludwig was very, very good. He understood perceptions and how people would react to things. But I was a good student and I followed that. And at one stage, Barry Hammonds had to go to jail. We didn't have to go to jail. We just decided we couldn't figure out how to win the case. And I remember ringing him up and say, "How are we going to win?" He said, "No, I can't see how we can win. Our Queen's Counsel is a friend of mine, David Russell, said, you can't win it." And I said, "Barry, you're just going to have to go to jail again." And dutifully he did. And of course,
how long for?
4 days.
And what did he go to jail for? What was the conviction?
The breach of the award, actually. Nothing to do with what we were actually doing in terms of subcontract arrangements. It was an old case that the AWU had and they hadn't proceeded with, and they decided to bring it up, thinking that this would demonstrate that you could be prosecuted under, under the new subcontract conditions that we were running. It's good thinking on Ludwig's behalf, smart guy. But we outwitted him. Well, poor old Barry did. He had to go to jail for 4 days in jail, which wasn't much fun.
Wow.
But we got all the headlines. Jailed for breaching the award, and that took all the emphasis away from, and we got all the publicity, and
and that worked in your favour.
Very much in our favour, and we established clearly that the award, the big thing was shearing on weekends, and we established in practice you could shear on a weekend, right? And that broke the one of the power grips that the AWU had. On being able to prosecute anybody at will, in particular for shearing in overtime hours. So when they didn't have that lever where they could prosecute a grazier or a contractor, they had no way of getting membership. The membership was gained by saying, unless you put all these guys in the union, we'll prosecute you for A, B, C or D. Right? Now we took that prosecution for A, B, C or D out of the game, and without that they couldn't recruit. So 10 years later the membership's down to probably 5 or 10% of the shearers.
And it seems to me that the way they should be recruiting is by offering services to members.
Well, you only do that when you have to. If you don't have to, you don't.
And you have to when there's competition.
When there's competition, you do.
And you don't have to when you've got a monopoly.
Correct.
This shouldn't be rocket science.
It's as simple as that. That's all it is. Competition breeds a better class of service and a competitive one.
Yeah.
We're in the game to provide better service.
So just to reiterate, you're not anti-union, you're anti-monopoly.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about the building industry reform that you did.
Keep in mind that I didn't see myself so much as a reformer. I was just in business. We had a lot of people, and we had a labour hire arrangement, and I didn't particularly want to get involved with trying to deal with unions. It seemed to me smarter to figure out how if there was a way to keep them off. And we did a bit of homework, and we discovered that the contracts that were used at that stage by the Master Builders Association effectively meant that the contractors building the site were exempt from any or the subcontractors on the site were exempt from any responsibility vis-a-vis union disruption. So if the unions came on and said, "Stop work, the site is black," everyone went to the pub and, you know, the subcontractors got off scot-free. So we changed the contracts, and the HIA, the Housing Industry Association, went along with us on this, and they actually changed their formal contracts, and they still use it. And in 20 years, the HIA has not had building union problems. Right?
What did they change in the contracts?
Well, all we did, it was only a couple of sentences. It just simply made the subcontractor who stopped work responsible. So can I give you an example of how it worked?
Yeah.
What had happened is the union officials would come on the site and they'd go to the scaffolders and they'd say, "We don't like those brickies over there because they're a buddy gang and those guys aren't in the union. Scaffolder, stop work." And the scaffolders would go, "Sure, whoop, stop work." And then they would go, the union official would go to the building site contractor and say, "The brickies have just stopped the site because they're not in the union." And what traditionally happened was that the building owner, you know, the building contract would go to the brickies and say, "You guys have stopped the site." No, they didn't.
That's right.
The scaffolders stopped the site. So our contract said if the scaffolders stop, then they got the bill. And boy, oh boy, that's all it took. Because the scaffolders workers would not, they wouldn't let down their boss because they needed him for the next job. You know, if they walked off, he was going to get a bill which was going to send him broke. So the reality was they kept working. And it was that simple. It was that simple.
So the unions would give these orders to the scaffolders, in your example, because they had a problem with the brickies. But the problem with the brickies wasn't anything that actually hurt anybody or any business or any profit or any product.
The brickies were still working.
It was simply because they weren't giving the union money.
That's right. It's all it is. It's all about money.
And they were essentially trying to dictate membership instead of giving them freedom of association, which is allegedly a constitutional right. Well,
that's a charming term, freedom of association. Look, this stuff is all about money. Don't be fooled into thinking there's an ideological bone in any union official's body.
That's
there
right.
ain't.
Yeah.
It's only about money. And when you look at it in terms of money, it's pretty easy to solve. And so we figured out how to do it. And we set up around about 7 or 8 high-rise sites in conjunction with a formwork operator who made so much bloody money that he retired.
Wow.
Bastard.
From 7 sites.
From 7 sites. Well, see, what was happening? He was quoting on the normal length of time it would take, and the jobs were coming in around about 2/3 the time. So his labour costs, he was paying them essentially just by the hour. Through us. So he made a fortune.
Wow.
So he didn't translate the savings back to the owners. But that's, in future, other formwork contractors would have come in and competed and forced that price down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can only do that once or twice before everybody figures out how to undercut you.
7 times actually in Ronnie's case. But good luck to him.
Yep.
He was a great guy. He was tough as and strong and loyal, and we would not have been able to do it without that guy.
Okay.
So no criticism of Ronnie. He was just lucky, smarter than me.
And so you managed to build in Queensland without the CFMEU running the site. Has that kind of pattern managed to continue on?
No.
What's
the only other person that's done a high-rise site without the unions is Gracie Collier. And Gracie used a slightly different technique than we did, but essentially just told them to go away in Grace's inimitable way. Okay. And they did. So she managed to keep them off a site in Brisbane, but no one else has succeeded in doing it. The building industry stuff...
So why were you successful, and why have other people not been able to replicate?
Well, it was my money for a start. It's the old hip pocket nerve, and the unions were on the site, or I was on the site. There was no deal to be made with them. They were our business competitor, so I just treated it as a business arrangement. But the major building, the problem...
And you mean you as the labour hire provider?
Yeah, I was just a businessman.
Yep.
But probably a bit more forthright than most, I suppose. But to me, that was simple. If I kept them off, then I had a clean run and I could make money. If they came on, they would stuff me around, and their purpose would be to try and put me out of business.
Yeah, and if anybody's watching this and thinks making money is a bad thing, see if you'll go to work for free.
Yeah. I mean, businesses are there to make money.
Exactly.
You're not stealing money, but you don't make money if someone comes on and says, you've got to stop that, and you've got to keep paying everybody. If you don't have to keep paying everybody, you've got to stop that. You don't make any money when you're not working.
And if you're not making money, you're not interested in doing any more projects, which includes hiring people.
Correct.
And so no business profits, no jobs.
Yeah. Well, when Ronnie retired, we basically... See, we had building was only part of what we did. And until I could find another Ronnie Jenkins, I wasn't particularly interested in going back onto building sites. And so we went, I wrote the monograph for the H.R. Nichols Society, spelled out how to do it, but no one's followed it. And, the government's fiddling around with this Australian building and construction.
Give me again the précis, the overview. How do you do it?
How do you do it? First of all, you have to make it, the building site operator has to make a decision that there will be no CMFU on the site, right? Or no compulsory. Fellas can be in the union, that's fine. But it cannot be a condition. So you put in your contracts, the opposite of what's in them now, was actually implied in them now, that you must make sure that any subcontract that stops gets the bill for the site. Now that's standard in the HIA contracts.
And what do you mean the bill for the site?
Well, what happens, a site stops. There's huge cost, and that's called liquidated damages. So if you stop a site, right, the site might cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a day.
Right. In scaffolding hire and
the whole,
security.
Yeah.
And...
Suddenly everyone's sitting around, twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the costs keep running up.
Yeah.
Or because one person has said,
they've decided to be greedy.
Yeah, we don't want to work, or we're afraid of working, which is more likely the case. So you've got to do that. And the unions are very, very clever. They understand the mechanisms. They manage to infiltrate and get automatic rights to come on for workplace health and safety reasons. But I think I haven't really had a close look at it, but it wouldn't be hard to get around a lot of that stuff. You just got to be determined to do it. I mean, the government theoretically has started off on the right foot with this ABCC stuff. But the reality is they've got no heart. I think it'll just all fizzle out because they don't understand the brutal reality is that a government in the situation, if it wants to stop the rorting, has got to say to people like Lend-Lease, firms like Lend-Lease and CIMEC and the other major contractors, that you can't get a job, you can't tender if you have provisions which force you to load up your price by 30%. Right? You just say no. You don't need any legislation, you just need balls. But, let's give me the list of politicians with balls. So we tried. It was good fun while it lasted. The template's still there. It's easy to do, but it's 20 years ago.
Okay.
There's still no one left alive or in the industry that knows how to do it.
Well,
I'm doing other things.
When we come back, let's have a chat about how you're helping nurses.
Cool.
Thanks for watching. If you really enjoyed that video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Have a look at this great video next, and check out the website for even more interesting articles and episodes later.